Got promoted to side here. Hi, how are you? Saturday. Oh my God. Do you know where the Cabela's Tower is? You go. She's in the company. She's not married though. She married and has a daughter from there's one. They're both going. Yeah. That one. She was an actual instructor. I don't think it's yeah, Alvin Kathy, probably maybe summer. Yeah, you went fine. Yep. I know. Hopefully they'll stabilize. And I learned from the book. This is shallow. You know, you have it. Shooting and up down. And which down to the floor. That's right. That's right. Hi, everybody. My name is Leanne Lochtefeld. I am the Abilities Club president that I am starting this semester. Well, last 2 semesters I tried, but it was me, myself, and I. But I finally got Michelle Smith, who is a psychology professor. Some of you probably have her right now, I'm guessing. She is having van trouble. Midnight, she sends me an email, having trouble with my van. Can you take the care of the presentation? I haven't talked in how many years. I have a disability. I have a learning disability comprehension. I can read a paragraph and have no clue what I just read. So I use a lot of different programs to read to me. I also have physical disabilities, anywhere from my ankles roll. I walk like a duck. I also have knee replacement. My left knee, I can't have anything on it. So approximately 15 years now, I've wore shorts year round. So one of those crazy people that, you know, wear shorts, even during cold winter. I just wanted to thank everybody for attending. We have four speakers. One of them could not make it. And I'll explain that later when I do their speech for them. Today we have Nikki Smith. We have Elizabeth Brewer, who is my niece. Excuse me. Nicole is a student here. I guess she's kind of a all-time student year-round. Then we also have Pat Howard, who has been a student here and also worked at the bookstore for a number of years. And then we also have Mara and Maura Danaher, that is also has a speech to go. But what the Abilities Club is to get people with a disability or without. We call those allies. We want to let the campus know and our communities near and far to know that we're here. To let people know that, hey, she has a disability, but she can be funny too. She can be a friend. You don't have to ignore them. And the stares, that's the worst thing that you can do to a person in a wheelchair, a person with a cane, me with my book bag rolling down the hallway with my boots that squeak. But I just want to have a opportunity for even faculty and staff to be a member of the club. They don't have to be there to say, oh, no, you can't do that. I want them to be able to support us and us to support them and let them know that, hey, we're here for everybody and the communities. I would like to eventually get out in the communities and let people know that Wright State Dayton campus is, they're here. They're down there. We're here. Well, we don't communicate together, but we're here. We won't go there. But we want to know that, they're top 10 of the disability awareness because they have the tunnels and they got, this and that and everything, and someone to help them. Well, if you know someone that's in a wheelchair or has a disability that can't, they need a diaper change, they can get people up here to be able to do that like they do down there. We're not reserved to just one person. But we'll get into the presentations now. If I'd like to welcome Nicole Smith up here.
Hello. Some of you guys may know me from around campus. I'm pretty involved. I'm part of a lot of clubs. I've been here for a long time. I originally transferred to Wright State. I'm not going to really talk about what year it was because we don't want to remember how long ago that was. But I transferred here to finish my early childhood education degree. And it was a really wonderful experience. I loved Wright State. And when I decided that I needed a career change, I did come back to Wright State for my psychology degree. And along the way, I decided that what the heck, let's get an English degree too. So as she said, I am a longtime student at Wright State. I love Wright State Lake campus. I love the community. I love the staff, and it's been a wonderful experience. When we talk about disabilities, a lot of people think of disabilities, like she said, as someone with a cane or someone with a wheelchair. But Michelle has asked me to be a part of this presentation many times to talk about invisible disabilities, because invisible disabilities are just as hard on the person and the family, but they have a very different look when it comes to outsiders looking in. So if you were to look at me today, you're like, oh, she looks healthy, she looks fine, she stands up there, she doesn't have any type of aids that she's using. But what most people don't realize is I've had a disability since I was a child. I have lupus. It was one of the first things I was ever diagnosed with. I started having problems in the third grade. I had a lot of respiratory issues. I had problems. They were like, "Oh, it's asthma," and then it's pneumonia, and then I had a lot of skin issues, and like, "Oh, she has problems with, eczema, and maybe it's psoriasis." So it took many years and many doctors to kind of put all the little pieces together. And sometimes with individual disabilities, when you don't have a lot of those outward signs, things kind of fall through the cracks. So it took 10 years to figure out exactly what was going on with me. And I went through a lot of issues with school where I'd miss weeks of school and I would be so sick I couldn't get out of bed. I would be hospitalized. And then 2 weeks later, I was perfectly fine. I was running around the neighborhood. In fact, one of our faculty members growing up, Linda Helen Jarvis, was my neighbor. And most of the time, I was one of those little kids in the neighborhood. You would never expect there was anything wrong with me. I ran around, I played, I acted like a normal kid. And then there'd be days where I couldn't, sorry, give me just a minute. I went to doctors and I'd have doctors tell my dad that I was faking because I didn't want to go to school. And then I'd wind up in the hospital because my liver function would drop down to 72% after they said I was faking. So I'd go weeks feeling awful, going to school, going to sports practice, not realizing what was wrong with me, feeling like I was doing something wrong because I was telling people that I didn't feel well, that I couldn't do things. And so I went through that for a really long time. It wasn't until my senior year of high school when they were treating me for, they were treating me for skin conditions because I would get up one morning and my whole face would have this rash on it and my skin would be so sore. I couldn't even touch it. I couldn't use moisturizer or anything on it because my skin would crack and bleed like on my face, underneath my eyes, on my hands. I was going through all this different medication, all these doctors, and nothing was working. And went from being an honor roll student to almost failing classes, not because I wasn't getting work done, but because of attendance, because of missing school for days. I went through, having issues with the office and the attendance ladies wanting to give me a hard time because they thought I just didn't want to be at school and I was just a lazy kid. I had some amazing coaches, thank goodness. I really loved sports. I played sports all through school. I had some amazing coaches that were really understanding and understood that there was something more going on. And that didn't keep me out of participating just because I used to miss. So I went through high school and realized that, hey, we have a family history here. Let's look into this. It turns out this little girl has lupus. And then from there, it opened up this whole world of, okay, now what do we do? So I went to college and I wanted to live a normal life. Like I wanted to do normal things. So I went to college. I danced on a dance team and I was really active in sports. And I just took things day by day. And some days were really great, and then some days were really awful. And as time went along, with any type of disability, you wind up with comorbidities. And comorbidities are usually symptoms or other conditions that kind of come along and progress when you wind up with different disabilities. And so, with me having lupus, as time progressed, I wound up having problems with my digestion. And they're like, oh, well, you have IBS, which turned into ulcerative colitis. So now, as an adult, I deal with ulcers and I deal with being really careful what I eat in my diet. I deal with gastrointestinal problems. So I have to be careful with that. And I wound up having Raynaud's syndrome, and Raynaud's syndrome is when the blood vessels in your hands and feet, when they're exposed to cold, your blood vessels contract so much that it cuts off circulation to your fingers and your hands and your feet. It's not dangerous because it's not a long term, but it can be very painful and your hands turn white and your feet turn white. And we live in Ohio and it gets very, very cold. So, with someone with this syndrome, you have to make sure that you're careful and you pack things like gloves and you look like a crazy Eskimo lady when you're wearing your big parka and it's only 60 degrees outside. And you're like, listen, today's a bad day and the weather's affected me and I'm in a lot of pain. And there's times when I've had systemic inflammation, my entire body inflames, and I gained 30 pounds. None of my clothes fit. As a woman, that's not fun for anybody. Nothing fits. You don't feel right in your body. You go through periods where you look pregnant and your feet swell and you can't walk and you can't bend your joints. And because of that inflammation, it just doesn't affect you outwardly, it affects you inside. I've had problems with my pancreas being enlarged because it's too swollen, and my blood sugar going up and down. Even though I don't have diabetes, I have the same symptoms as a diabetic. I've had problems with my heart. The sac around my heart has become inflamed before, and it's put so much pressure on my heart that we were worried about heart attack. 2 years ago, I had a double stroke. I had a stroke, and then 2 days later, I had a second one. And it wasn't because I had any type of brain blockage. There was so much inflammation in my body that it cut off. It didn't cut off. It just slowed the circulation of blood to my brain because my carotid artery was so swollen, and I lost my eyesight, and that was really scary. Um, the sight in my right eye came back within hours. The sight of my left eye took several weeks to come back. Um, I didn't have peripheral vision. I couldn't drive. I'm still working on getting my driving privileges back. As an adult, not having driving privileges is a big deal. I have kids and I have a family and I have a job, and getting around, I have to have someone take me everywhere. Like with Michelle today, Michelle relies on someone else to transport her, and that's really hard as an adult. And people don't realize that, like how much that you deal with on a daily basis and how hard it is. And I had one incident where I was here at campus, and this was right after I'd had a really bad flare up and I'd been having issues walking. And then I was in a car accident where I was ejected, and having the injury on top of my disability made healing time really long. And at one point, I had a service animal that was helping me walk and helping me get around. And I had just gotten strong enough where I was walking on my own and I was doing fine. And I came to campus and I used the button to open up the door. And there happened to be a lady here with her daughter for a campus visit. And her daughter made a comment. She's like, "Why did that girl use the button?" And the lady goes, "Oh, some people are just lazy. They're too lazy to push the door open." I didn't say anything, but I walked through campus that day, had to go stop in the bathroom because I was so upset. I didn't say anything to her, and I really wish I would have, because now I'm a little bit older, a little bit wiser, a little bit more collected. I wish I'd have said something, but I was ashamed. I was so ashamed that that lady thought I was lazy. I was ashamed. And and the fact that I was ashamed because of her reaction and how she viewed me is incredible to me today as someone who's a little bit older and wiser. The fact that I let someone else's view of me, someone who is struggling and doing my best to get by, and I think I'm doing really good. There's some days that I feel great about how much I've accomplished. And there's other days like, wow, I really wish I could do more. But I let her feel me. I let her make me feel ashamed about what my abilities were. And that is a big issue. And that's why I'm really here to talk about the invisible disabilities. So anyone who sees someone that's struggling, please, please, please don't be like, "Oh my gosh, that person's so lazy." Maybe you don't feel comfortable asking them. Maybe they don't want to be asked. But for sure, don't call someone lazy. Don't say, "Oh, they're just a slacker. They're just lazy. They just don't want to do this," because you have no clue what someone is personally struggling with. And not everybody's open. When I first was diagnosed, I didn't want anybody to know that I had a disability. It was something I was really uncomfortable with because people treated me differently. My family, especially, were super protective and super worried when I got pregnant because, having a disability, especially something that affects your internal organs, pregnancy was a big deal. It took me a really long time to be able to conceive. And it's something that my husband and I really had to work on and really had to hope for. And so my family was on top of me constantly. And as much as I loved their attention and that care, you know, no one wants to be treated different. We want to be treated like everyone else. We don't want someone to tell us, "Oh no, don't do that. You might hurt yourself." We want to be able to go out there and have fun. I love sports. I coach sports. Um, I love to be active and I know my limitations. I'm really good about taking care of myself and self-regulating. And so if you're someone who doesn't have a disability and you want to be an ally, it's amazing. Give as much support as you can to those people, but make sure that you're not stopping them from living a full life because they want to do the same things everyone else wants to do. I want to do the same things everyone else wants to do. I want to go on vacation. I want to climb mountains. I want to hike. I want to swim. I want to do everything I can. So I just take things day by day. And with any disability, having all kinds of symptoms, sometimes you go through a long diagnosis process, and sometimes you change doctors and you get new opinions. And along the way, recently, my doctors are like, "Hey, I'm pretty sure you have ADHD as well as lupus." And I was like, "Oh, amazing." They're like, "Some of these symptoms that we've kind of wrote off as like brain fog and fatigue." They're like, "We think you actually have ADHD." So here I am, 30 some years old. They're like, "Oh, you have adult ADHD." What does that mean? That means that all this time I've been dealing with some of these symptoms that I've learned these amazing coping techniques for, but at the same time, like it would give me anxiety and I would feel so tired and I would get my circadian rhythm was off and I would want to sleep during the day and be awake all night. And I would go through these times where I would get so much done and I would take on so much and I would be amazing. And then I would hit this point where I just couldn't do anymore. And I have all these obligations and I feel so stressed. And they'd put me on the anxiety medication for it. For like 3 years, I was on anxiety medication. And it turns out that I just probably was dealing with ADHD. So if you have things in your life that you're dealing with and you're struggling with and you don't let people know, sometimes there's things in your life that you might be able to get help with. You might be able to, find something that works for you. Maybe it's not a disability, maybe it's just something that you need some stress reliever, maybe you need to do some yoga, maybe you just need some friends to come in and jump in with you. Don't hide behind your symptoms and hide them from people. I know it's hard to let people know that you have something going on, but it's really important to reach out and let people know if you have something going on because a lot of these symptoms and a lot of disabilities, some of the comorbidities are suicidal issues because you struggle so much and you don't want to feel different. So you keep everything inside. And when you keep everything inside and you're not sharing that with someone, that becomes a really heavy burden to carry by yourself. And I personally haven't experienced it, but I've seen it a lot in people that I've known and people that I've met throughout treatment. And suicide rates among those with disabilities is really high. And that's something I think that friends and family should be aware of and just make sure that we're supporting and make sure that we're there to help carry the burden. And does anyone have any questions? All right. Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate it. You can get going so you can take your daughter to sports. The next person that we have to speak is Elizabeth Brewer.
Hi, is this on?
Yep.
Man, that's a hard one to follow. I've never done this and she has, so hopefully I don't mess this up. My name's Elizabeth Brewer. And I'm a senior at Versailles High School, which is about 30 minutes from here. And honestly, I'm just like you. I like to paint, spend time with my family, hang out with my friends, and play with my dogs, Beauty and Chester, who, by the way, are adorable. And I was not always disabled. It happened about 3.5 years ago where I had my most major thing. And I had no symptoms before that, other than a few joint issues and occasional nausea when I ate. In the summer of 2021, which was 3.5 years ago, I know, I was at Catholic Youth Summer Camp in Damascus, which is about 3 hours from here. Now, picture this mid June heat, very hot, halfway through the week at this crazy camp, and I was kneeling for praying and I just kept fainting. They thought maybe it was just because you're overcome with the Holy Spirit. Sometimes it looks like you fall asleep and it can mimic fainting. And so they thought maybe let's just have her go to bed and see if she'll be okay in the morning. Well, the next morning at 6 a.m., I woke up throwing up and fainting again. And so they called 911 and I went to Nationwide Children's in Columbus. And by the way, my parents were 3 hours away. They eventually chalked it up to dehydration from the heat, which honestly, I don't blame them. And everything seemed normal until the next week when I fainted in the shower. I went to doctor after doctor. Only things were a few blood tests were off, and nothing really added up to a diagnosis. And by the way, when I say doctor to doctor, up to now I've been to approximately 20 specialists. And those are the only ones with MD, DO, or PhDs. I eventually got a diagnosis of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a genetic syndrome, which means you are very flexible because your collagen in your body, which is everywhere, is not quite as solid as a normal person's. So I am double jointed in a lot of areas and my skin scars easy. That was really mostly it, but that would give them a clue because it has a lot of core mobilities, like she said, and it can lead to other things. So that was our biggest clue at that point, but really nothing. Eventually, my primary care doctor mentioned something called dysautonomia. So, dysautonomia is where your autonomic nervous system, which controls your entire body. So, think your heart beating, your breathing, your way you think, the way you move, everything does not work. Something about it. It's a big umbrella term. And one thing underneath is called postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, or POTS. Underneath it, it means that when I stand, my body thinks I'm about to run from a lion, and my blood pressure drops very, very quick, and my heart rate goes up very high, and I just pass out like that. And it honestly made sense. But here's the problem. All they taught most people in medical school was that it's a thing, treat it with salt and water. That's it. So they told me, drink more water, eat more salt. It'll fix itself. And it didn't. And one thing, because of this, is that it's seen as rare, but it's not, because they won't diagnose it for a lot of people because they just don't see it as an issue. The main treatment is just the salt and water, and I just was not getting better. My weight was dropping, and I was just feeling horrible, but I was still maintaining okay on the outside. I was still going to school, keeping my grades up, sort of, and just being myself. Now we're gonna flash forward to July of 2022. I just finished band camp because, I'm that kid. And I was still fainting when I was working out or in the heat, but I was keeping it under control. And then a case of COVID got in the band, and I was like, all right, I'll be okay, but my immune system is not that great. And I got COVID. Of course I did. And I got it bad. I was actually alone in my house. I thought I was just a little sick. I thought was feeling better after a nap, and I fell and I could not get up. I couldn't sit up. I ended up at Cincinnati Children's Hospital emergency room where my primary cardiologist was at that time, and I couldn't sit up. I couldn't stop fainting, and they couldn't do much for me. They decided they were going to discharge me because my respiratory symptoms were only mild and they didn't really know what to do, and they thought it would just go away with time because my body is struggling. Newsflash, it didn't go away. We didn't know what to do. They tried the very few medications that are approved or typically used off label for POTS, but they either didn't work or were horrible side effects. Like if you touched my head, I was going to scream at you. It was bad. And at this point, I was using a wheelchair 100% of the time because I couldn't stand for more than 5 seconds. I was eventually diagnosed with functional neurologic disorder. Pretty much is when your body is under so much physical stress that it decides that, hey, wait a minute, this works for one thing, let's make it work for everything. So it decided that, well, when she's too hot or when she works out, I use fainting to fix my blood pressure. Let's use it to fix everything. So now every time I stand, it's like, wait, that's too hard. We're going to faint because I think that's going to fix it. And I've been dealing with this for a while. And honestly, it didn't really give me a fix. It just gave me a name. This was probably the lowest point of my life because nobody knew what to do. And I was really, really struggling. And I was losing hope. Sometimes I thought that maybe I was just faking it for attention. I don't know. That's what some people say, and maybe it truly is. And I would go to my room, try to stand up, and then just faint, be like, well, there's no one here to fake it for. I was really dealing with anxiety and depression, which is, like she said, was very high in people with disabilities. And I am on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication for this because I was having panic attack after panic attack. Eventually, we decided to spread out. I went to Cleveland Clinic hoping for a treatment or a cure because there's a specialist. And because I wasn't 18, I wasn't able to see that specific specialist, so they gave me somebody else. Let's just say after the doctor at Cleveland Clinic both confirmed my diagnosis of POTS with a very specific test and then told me everything I was feeling was from anxiety, we needed for some serious options. We looked all across the country and we even looked internationally as backup plans. Mayo Clinic said they didn't have a program that fit the intensity that I needed, and that was heartbreaking because we spent a lot of time trying to get into there. We eventually found a part of Johns Hopkins Hospital called Kennedy Krieger, which is the Pediatric Neurological Institute. We got referred to Kennedy Krieger in March of 2023, but their first appointment was October, which is 8 months away. That's because there are just really no specialists. We went in October, and this person was great. I'm telling you, Dr. Kokoyar, shout out, she's amazing. And we decided that we were going to do 2 things. One, we were going to start a medication, which is a high risk, high reward. It's called Corlinor or ivabriadine for anybody that's medical. But pretty much it's only used if they have really bad heart failure or enlarged hearts, which I don't have. But a few people get better with bots on it. And honestly, that is a miracle drug that works great. And so it was really helping with me. So pretty much it changes the electrical around the heart. And so it makes it more efficient. So instead of going across the hallway, in my wheelchair, taking 200 beats per minute in my heart, now it's only going 100 or 80. And it was just amazing because now I'm able to do so much more. And so I got referred for admission as well at Kennedy Creator's Pediatric Comprehensive Neurorehabilitation Unit. That's a long word. We were given no date, but they were hinting about the holidays in the hospital. So I was a little bummed, but we were excited. We thought late November into the start of January. But 2 weeks later, we got a call to be admitted on November 6th, which is my sister's birthday, and it was much earlier than we expected. Cue the frantic preparations. The day before I was supposed to leave, insurance denied everything. My heart was crushed. I had been my heart crushed before, but man, I had my hopes up, and it was not good. Thankfully, Dr. Cochlearis, she didn't appeal, and I was able to get approved right before we had to leave. My inpatient stay. Admission was a whirlwind, but we finally got settled in. My parents were not supposed to be there for the majority of my treatment. They were asked to leave, and I was not supposed to really have a cell phone except for one call a day, just because they don't want outside drama affecting anything that we're doing inside, because it's just such an intensive program. I'm going to do a little tangent, but my roommate named Ariana, was amazing. I later found out that she had brain damage because she survived brain cancer at the age of 4. She was 15 in an 8-year-old's body with a 4-year-old's brain. But man, did I love her and her mom, Tasha, because they were my family when mine was not allowed. I won't go into much detail, but she unfortunately passed away in January of this year. And her mom was really sweet. She summed it up pretty well. I called her last night, and I asked her if I could use her name, and she said, "Well, of course you can. She's your sister." And I about started crying. In the hospital, my days were crazy, with 1.5 hours of PT, an hour of OT, and 2 to 4 hours of various other therapies, including behavioral psychology, child life, and school. And it was crazy. In the time off, I was often found in their playroom. So picture this, big room full of all the board games, card games, video games, imaginable with giant TVs. And they even had unlimited art projects and group activities. 2 to 10 staff whose job it was just to do whatever you wanted. It was great. And they even brought in a dog, which made me very sad and happy because I missed my dog so much. I was eventually discharged on December 1st, about 1 month after my admission. I went from standing for 5 seconds to standing for 45 seconds. After admission, it was actually very hard to adjust to normal life. Not only because I couldn't just set my clothes outside the room and they come folded in the morning, but because it was honestly hard to socialize after missing so long. It was very hard to look at my friends and know that I missed so much and that I've changed and they've changed. And my friends are amazing people. I started back at St. Children's 3 days a week for PT and was also visiting a pain psychologist that I also went to before to help me cope with life. And we were just keeping up the progress. I did not return to school until the start of the second semester, January 15th, which is about a month later. I was behind because I only got an hour of school at the hospital, and I'm still very behind. Don't worry. Where am I at now? I still go to PT and psychology 2 times a week, and I also go to the Neurological Center at Burkittsville, Ohio, which gives free PT and developmental functional PT 3 days a week. So every day a week I have PT, and I'm telling you, my muscles hurt. Babies think walking look easy and cute, but I will tell you it is not. And guess what? I'm planning to walk at my high school graduation in May. I just wanted to highlight that I have not stopped my life. Although I've had to back out of some activities, including cheerleading and some other ones. I have maintained my personality and spirit. I still participated in marching band, although they wouldn't let me throw heavy flags over my head anymore, musical and academic team. And I plan to continue on to college to study pre-medical neuroscience and public health. I'm also the 2023 Dart County Fair Queen, and I started a campaign called Fair for All as Fair Queen to add accessibility additions to our fairgrounds. It led to opportunities such as interviews, podcasts, and meetings with important state officials. I can happily say that we will be adding a sensory space, new pavement, new signage, and potentially interpreters at our 2024 Dart County Fair. Just a plug. It is important to realize that even the most positive person with a disability probably struggles with their mental health. Like Nikki said, it is very prominent. It's a lot to handle, maintain, and go through, and a lot of the times you don't want to burden any others anymore. Everyone has a dark day, even if you see them smiling all about, because you might not see them when they're crying in their room at 3 a.m. Just understand that we are also humans too. And the main thing I want to say is that we are just like you and me. I've met cancer survivors, car accident victims, and others with disabilities during my time, and we are all just regular people that have different stories. I encourage you to treat us like you would regular do anybody else. Also, I would much rather you ask me the question you have in your head than you to stare at me or avoid me altogether. The worst thing I can say is that I don't want to share today. Thank you for this opportunity, and like I said, I'm open to any questions. Anybody have any questions before I hand off the mic?
Next.
Hi, guys. Leanne again. Today, if you saw the flyer, there was Mara and also Maura Danisher that was supposed to be here today. Unfortunately, Sunday, I received a text stating, "What happens if Maura is admitted to the hospital?" I says, "Well, health is better than a speech here. Yeah, we'll just kind of skip over you. We'll have something next time, or maybe if there's a nursing program here, maybe you can come in and talk to them. Maybe this will give them an opportunity." But then it hit me yesterday morning. Well, yeah, okay. Maura was admitted to the hospital down at ICU in Children's in Columbus. She is going to be 2 years old in 40 days. On April 19th, she'll be 2 years old. This is a picture of her currently. And this is when she was born. At 12 years old, at 12 days old, Maura was diagnosed with a genetic mutation of a gene EEF1A2. It's a big, long word with a lot of numbers and letters and everything. But the doctor said she wouldn't probably live for at least maybe 6 months if they was lucky. They was devastated. Then a week later, they came in and says, she needs a trach. That's where you go in through the neck and put a tube in to help her breathe. They had very many questions, was kind of questioning, what do we do? And they says, it'll give her more time, maybe a couple days, maybe years. You never know. So they decided, okay, give her more time, give her our daughter. So they went ahead with the trach. Her genetic disorder has caused severe medical issues, including epilepsy and severe developmental health issues. The doctor said she would never walk, talk, crawl, hold hands, eat by mouth, stand, sit, or roll. But with therapy today, okay, last week, she was able to roll over, walk on, excuse me, roll over, walking with standing unassisted up to 12 seconds. She is working on putting weight on her legs. A couple months ago, she got little shoes with little braces. They're so cute. To get her to the ability that she can do what she wants when she wants. And that's one big thing that I've learned from her. Mara's husband and my husband work together. That is how I became friends with the family. Every day they fight with insurance, medications, equipment for the therapy that she needs. One thing that they've been trying to get is a stander. It's something that's a device kind of similar to this podium, but it has a backboard that she can stand on, and they can put her in and help her with standing. Because currently she can sit or lay down, but not standing on her own yet. She doesn't have the strength. But they also deal with doctor appointments. They go to Columbus. So they try to get as many doctor appointments in one day that they know Maura can stand. Not stand, but can hold in a day. But Maura has also getting the equipment that would improve her life is the biggest thing. So they're hoping that with the upcoming April 22nd Maura benefit, it's in Wapak. There's a paper up here. Well, I kind of took it from over there, but it has a link to her Facebook page. It's called Maura Strong. They are doing a gun raffle. They have different guns. They also have other non-gun items that they're going to be auctioning off, raffling off. They have a hog raffle. They also are having, last I heard, they had a few Talladega tickets left. You buy a ticket for $50, and the top three winners that pick the right driver and the last place driver each get a sum of that money that they raised. But the remaining goes to Maura's family because they need the equipment, maybe helping with getting things in their house ready because, well, eventually she's getting bigger. So she's toddler age now. So insurance says you can only have a chair every 5 years. Well, okay. If she gets a wheelchair at 5, how is she going to fit it at 10? You know, it just doesn't make sense with insurance, but we won't go there, as we all know. They also have issues with parking. A lot of people don't understand that the handicap van or non-van parking is for handicap. They have come out of a store or the hospital even and someone would be parked right in that place where the ramp comes down. Luckily, they haven't had an emergency when they're out, because coming out emergency, that means Columbus. They're 2 hours away if they're at home in Wapak. Well, if someone's parking them in, they have to wait for that person. And if they're at a mall or something, which store is that person in? How are they going to get that car out of there so they can get on their way? One thing that the ramps at buildings, for example, post offices. Not all post offices have ramps. There is some type of thing that if it was built by a certain year, then they don't need a ramp. So instead of going to Walpock, I go to St. Mary's because they have a ramp. Then there's also getting through the stores anymore. You're lucky to get a shopping cart. Well, she has a wagon that holds her oxygen, her feeding equipment, and any other thing that a diaper bag, anything a baby needs, but they also have other things. And then also even some of these stores don't have big enough, wide enough doors or even homes. I know this because, well, my husband's currently making all of our rooms in our house 36 inches. Because 2 years ago, I had surgery. I couldn't fit my wheelchair in the bathrooms. That was interesting. But you also have the changing rooms, changing tables at places. Here on campus, there's one in the Welcome Center, different locations. Well, as she gets bigger, taller age, is she going to fit? Or does a place have a location that you can use to be able to sit her down safely and change a diaper or change her feeding? She gets fed through a tube into her stomach, and that goes on every 4 hours or something. So with that, she needs to be able to have that security of a changing table. And also the bathrooms. Some places, the privacy between the cracks of the door or the walls, there's openings. And that's, even for myself, I don't like going into some of those bathrooms because I don't want someone to look in to see if I'm getting done just so they can have the handicap stall. And I've been around here, and there has been students that will go into a bathroom stall and be on their phone. Okay, yeah, it's fine. Not in a handicap place, please. Handicap or for handicap. Yeah, I don't see, someone may not have a disability that you can see that they use it. That's fine. I get irked when I don't say something, but I don't want to be nosy. Then there's also the home health nursing. It's a very hard to find the nursing person to be able to be a nurse for her age and at home and be able to be certified in like seizures and different things. If anybody here is in the nursing program or knows a nursing home health nurse or is interested in being, or close to being a home health, if you want to reach out to me or Michelle, then I'd be more than happy to reach out to connect you with the family. But today, the presentation, she stated, is for the Abilities Club. So Mara wanted to focus on the word abilities. She says Maura has the ability to inspire, to help her Genesis learn more, and maybe help the next kid. She has the ability to help others get over their hard because it can be. So I can. What that meant was, okay, I have trouble walking. It hurts every step. Well, I'm like, well, if she can eat, by darn, I can do my walking, practice my walking. Or I can go out and get the mail. Even though, well, I'll probably pay for it later on, but hey, Maura can do it, I can do it. I also, she stated that the stairs in public, she gets it all the time, especially with Maura having a the vent and everything. She had one little boy, several kids come up, but she remembered one that she wanted to talk about today. And a little boy came up and says, "What's that?" and was waving his hand over the tube, thinking, not knowing what it was. And the mom yanked him back, says, "That's not very good. That's not very nice. You don't say that." And Mara's like, "No, it's okay. He can ask questions. I'm more than happy to talk to him." And the mom was kind of like, "Okay." So she told the little boy, says, "Okay, see this box? She can't breathe like we do. So this little thing sends little air to her to help her breathe." He said, "Oh, well, what's that machine?" "Well, that's her feeding tube. She's getting her food right now." "She's hungry?" She said, "Yep." And he was so excited. He turned around and says, yanked his mom over and said, "Mom, she's hungry. She's getting food right now." And Mara's like all, taken back because of this. You know, you never know what you can do by just asking the questions to stop the stares. I've had in high school, I was pushed, I was kicked, I was, made fun of because at 16, 17, and before most of you was born, I had trouble, made fun of. But at 16, 17, I started to have trouble with my left knee and couldn't walk very good. And they just said, "Oh, you're weak. You just need exercise." But back to Maura's story, she just wants people to know that, hey, people have differences, but everybody as an ally or the disability community can all come together. The benefit is going to be coming up here. And I'll have it over here. You can link into the Mora Benefit has her Facebook link, or you can just search on her for her to get updates. Yesterday and today, Mora has improved, thankfully, in her Outcome from Sunday, she was coughing so hard, she was turning blue or coughing up blood. So with this, her improvements have been improving, but she has a long way. If anybody would say an extra prayer tonight for her, if you don't do that, send a good vibe, whatever you do, or let your friends know about it to get the prayers, because they are working, thankfully. But they're hoping to raise money for the benefit so that they can get the equipment that they need. Does anybody have any questions about? Okay. Pat, I will let you go on.
So many things that have been brought up, like we were talking about the restrooms. Years ago here, the restrooms were not accessible. And we had a girl in a wheelchair. She would go in, there was a handicap stall down, there was a restroom downstairs close to the bookstore, but she could get her wheelchair in and get the door closed. And it's like nobody could figure out what to do. And main campus, I'm going to say, we're saying it's going to be so expensive to do so and so. We ended up, I'm going to say, I don't even know how we came up with this, putting a shower curtain rod, tension rod, and a shower curtain. She could go in, she could pull the shower curtain, then she'd have her privacy. So for like $10, we fixed the problem. And main campus was going to say it was going to be hundreds of dollars. But anyway, back to my story, which like I said, they'll probably have to shut me up. About 54 years ago, well, it has been 54 in a week or so. I was about 2 weeks away from getting married. I was what they called trousseau shopping in Columbus with two friends, coming home on the interstate around Columbus and had a flat tire. Now, I was in the fast lane because that's usually where I am, in the fast lane, and I couldn't get off to the right side of the road. So I pulled to the inside, which was very narrow, and pulled over. Don't know if I had ever changed a flat tire in my life, but I was going to try. We had to get stuff out of the trunk, so I was passing stuff to my friends. I was leaning in the trunk when the car hit me from behind. Now, several cars had already gone by, but evidently he didn't see me. He him hitting me took my leg off a little bit above the knee, but at an angle. So they had to take my leg off at a higher angle. I'm going to say, because we don't know for sure, we think my arm hit some tire rims that were in the trunk. And then also the trunk lid coming down broke my pelvis. I've always said this. I was very fortunate. I know that sounds weird, but there was a lady stopped that was a nurse. There was a couple stopped that were in a camper that had water. There was a guy stopped that had a radio before cell phones, because we're talking 1970. He called where he works, and for some reason, and I never understood this, they couldn't get an ambulance to me, but they got some kind of a police wagon to me. Now, we were close, from what I gathered, to Ohio State, but thankfully they took me to Grant Hospital in Columbus. It was a Wednesday night. I'm going to say about 8:30. They put me in a room or a booth, and there were these doctors there at 8:30 at night on a Wednesday night. And this one doctor that was working on me went into the next booth, and he said to this other doctor, he said, "Jack, if this girl's going to live, you've got to get over here right now." So Jack, Dr. Tetrick, came over, and he's basically the one that I'm going to say saved my life. They had, like I said, they had to amputate higher on the leg. They had to put my pelvis, they put rods in it and all that kind of stuff. I was in ICU for 4 days. Then they moved me to an eye, ear, nose, and throat floor. because the head nurse on that floor was in a wheelchair. And they figured that would help me. I'm going to say this because this is just what I've heard. I questioned what happened, but I never got, I don't know how to explain it. But I was in Grant Hospital from March until the end of May. I was in a sling because my pelvis was broke. I was right-handed before. My dad brought me a clipboard. Now I'm laying in bed and I'm writing upside down, but that's how I started writing. Of course, you couldn't hardly read it, but that was how. But I was getting so many gifts. I'm going to say I had worked at the phone company. I was a telephone operator for a while back in the old days when there was telephone operators. And I was writing thank you notes. And then and then of course I had physical therapy. And then I had to have what they called a colostomy because of being in bed. Then they took me to therapy, and I finally got out of the hospital in the end of May. And then I think I was out for a week or two, and then they sent me to Dodd Hall on Ohio State campus. And I'm going to say this, to be rehabilitated. I don't mean to joke at it, but to me it kind of was, because they were going to teach me to type with one hand. I said, I don't think I ever learned to type with two hands. They had me sewing. They had me just doing different things, trying to use the left hand. They tried to fit me with an artificial leg, but for some reason I was having pain. Well, first of all, because I had been in this sling for so long, the what was left of my leg had contracted. They laid me on my stomach and put sandbags on my leg to try to straighten it out, because they couldn't fit me with an artificial leg till that leg was straight. Once the leg was straight and they fit me, then I was having trouble and we couldn't figure out why. Finally, somebody got smart. They took an x-ray when I was sitting in a wheelchair, and I had calcium deposits, or what they called bone spurs, growing on the end of that bone. So every time I tried to stand up, I had the bone spurs were digging into my leg. So back into the hospital, had surgery, came home, recuperated for a while, went back to Dodd, and I'm not going to say, because you got to know, I'm not patting myself on the back, but I was up and walking by November, which I think amazed everybody. I started college downtown that January. And it's just this, and of course, there again, that building downtown was not accessible. Where I parked, I had to go down steps, which led to the science labs, then up steps, and then up more steps to the classrooms. But I went to school there for at the time we were on quarters, 2 quarters and part of a summer. I don't think I had gone to Miami for a year and about flunked out, I will say. I had gotten straight A's here, but I had freedom at Miami that I didn't have here. But anyway, I still wasn't ready, I don't think, to go to school, and I was going to be a teacher. So I was then decided to go and specialize in special ed. Well, then long story short, I got stupid. I got married, moved to West Virginia, got pregnant, moved back to Salina, had a child, had a daughter, got divorced, moved in with my parents. Anybody ever heard of Red Book magazine? Read in Red Book magazine that accountants made money. So I had my daughter, didn't know how I was going to get by. We were living with my parents. So I decided I was going to be an accountant. So I came out here the summer of 75 and started taking business classes and started getting good grades, which was amazing. And also, there was a guy in one of my classes that said he knew they needed help in the bookstore. And so I got in touch with the lady in the bookstore, Sorry about that. Started working in the bookstore as a student, the summer of 75. Worked in there for 4 years till I got my bachelor's in accounting. And to be honest, I would never want to be an accountant, but that was the path I was on. But when I got ready to graduate, the store at that time had been privately owned. She sold it to the university, and I took over running the bookstore in the summer of 79 and did it till I retired in 2011. So I have seen so many changes out here and so many things, but back to dealing with disabilities. I mean, I've got, like I said, I got 54 years worth of stories, but what I think the thing I've really learned is people, there's so many different kinds of disabilities. People don't, and until it affects people, they don't understand the parking. They don't understand. I had a lady, now this is, I mean, this is a true story well, it's out in Salon. Okay, doesn't matter. It was a bank. Their handicap parking was way down. I'm going to say like way down that way. But the door to the bank was here. But to get to the ramp, if you were in a wheelchair, was clear down there. I wasn't using a wheelchair at the time. I was able to walk. I cane sometimes for the longest time. But anyway, I said something to her about the parking spot. And she said, now that's what she said. They didn't want to inconvenience their regular customers. I've never forgotten that. I thought that was the most asinine thing to say, but that's what she said. And there were other places, I think, before Taco Bell, but Taco Bell used to be a Rax, like roast beef. Theirs was the same way. Not everybody in a wheelchair even needs a ramp, or that's like me that has, I don't always use a wheelchair. Now I've progressed to a scooter, but that's a whole nother story. Because I've had hip replacement, 2 knee replacements and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, but until it affects people, they don't understand. What somebody said about a child, that was always the thing that bothered me, because kids would look at me really strange. I would had a winter coat on one time. And this one kid, I swear, he got way, way down. He was looking up my other sleeve because he couldn't see the other arm. And he didn't know why. But the one thing that happened at Walmart, which was funny. This kid, I think I was using a scooter, which you can't always get, or they run out of power, which is another thing. Had this little boy who I knew his mother and his grandmother asked me what happened. Now what I always said was, I got hit by a car. This is why you don't play in the street. And that most of the time, all the kids, that was fine. And then they were fine. Now the parents, like sometimes parents would shush kids, or I would hear this and I would pretend I didn't hear the question. But anyway, this little boy comes back at me. Well, then what were you doing in the street? And I'm like, well, I had never had anybody ask me that. But like I said, you, you're probably getting an idea of what I'm like anyway. But I just adapted. I have figured out ways to do things that most people probably would never have thought of doing. Just one minor thing. If you have to work on your cuticles, okay? This little cuticle thing's like this big. I duct taped it to a toothbrush, and I can hold the toothbrush under this arm and cut my cuticles. Just like I said, just different things that I've been able to figure out how to do. Typing, I can type faster now than most people can probably type with 2 hands. Writing, when I first started college uptown, of course, had there again. It was just a few, well, not even a year that I had started writing with my left hand. So I thought, I'll tape record it. Well, then I never found time to listen to the tape recording. And so I just started writing faster. And it was pretty legible after a while, good enough to get me by. And I was fortunate enough to get all of my classes for my bachelor's degree in accounting here, except for, what did I say, three or eight class, because they had at that time junior level business classes here. So I got my degree in accounting, took over running the bookstore, had great employees. Sometimes some of them weren't too great, but anyway, most of them were great. Some of them I'm still in touch with from back then. And then as time went on, I went, they started offering the MBA classes here. There were another group of staff that were here that we all took the MBA classes, and I got my MBA, which it didn't really promote me because I was already head of the bookstore, and it didn't, but I did get a raise. But anyway, and raising my daughter, different people questioned me about that. I said, the only thing I didn't do with her was go up and down steps when she was a baby. I would kind of, I'm going to say this, throw her over my shoulder and walk around the house. I changed her diaper. I fed her. I did everything for her. And now I'm going to say it this way. I'm moving to Michigan in a little over a week, and she's going to start taking care of me. She's decided that I need help, which I don't think I need yet. I'm not that old, but they are building, her and her husband are building a room onto their house and converting an old bedroom into a bathroom so that if I need help, she'll be there. Like I said, I have gone from walking all the time, using a cane. I've had, I think 5 or 6 surgeries on my hand. Mainly for the longest time, it was from carpal tunnel from using a cane. That caused my first issue. Then the one doctor took a tendon out of my arm and replaced my thumb, and this, but if I use a cane or a walker, then it hurts my hand and it hurts my shoulder. And I can't afford to let this shoulder, because if I thought at the time that if I had to have shoulder replacement, I was going to be out of commission for 5 or 6 weeks. But then my doctor, bless his heart, told me there's something called reverse shoulder replacement that you're only out like 3 or 4 days, which I could handle 3 or 4 days better than I could 5 or 6 weeks. But it's a thing that I tell people when I see things that need to be done, I mention, you know, you need to get this fixed, you need to do this, you need to, and you know, like I said, it's one of those things that until it affects people, they don't realize what people with disabilities go through. And for years, I just, one of the examples, tell me when I have to shut up. Um, the museum uptown, bless her heart, Joyce just passed away recently, but the museum uptown, Mercer County Museum, is all steps. And the one day I went, I was still able to use steps, but when I came out, there was a preschool that was visiting, and some of the kids were in a wagon. And it got me thinking. I thought, and I don't know if I wrote a letter to the editor. I think I did, which was something I would do. I said, if you had a child in a wheelchair, how's that child going to get in that museum? Now there's no, I mean, I know there's no way they could have gotten them up to the second floor, but they finally put a ramp in at the museum. They put a ramp, and sometimes I'm not sure who these engineers are. They had put a ramp in years and years ago at the courthouse, but it was really, it was like, I think it started on Livingston Street, and then it went this way, and then it went this way, because it's got to be a certain slope or it doesn't work right. And I have that issue sometimes. I'm not real good with ramps, even though my son-in-law just ordered me one to get in their house. Um, some of them are too steep. Some of them just don't work. I don't do good walking ramps. I do better in a wheelchair. And a lot of times I go backwards better in a wheelchair than I go forwards. And because I can push with my, what's supposed to be my good leg, even though it's had 2 knee replacements and a hip replacement, I can go faster that way than trying to push with the wheelchair. So it's just, like I said, I've had, I gotta tell you one story because it just was funny. And like I said, shut me up. We were sitting at lunch one day down cafeteria years and years and years ago. And there was one of these faculty, I mean, there was some faculty and there were staff all sitting there eating. And I made the comment, I think I need an oil job. And this one professor, she taught education, bless her heart, she looked at me and she says, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "My artificial leg was squeaking." And she didn't even know I had an artificial leg. She knew that most everybody always knew I limped, but they didn't know why. And I even had one boy, he was a boy. He was handicapped and he tried to kind of knock me over one time going from the bookstore into the cafeteria. And I said something to him and he didn't know. And like I said, it was never, I don't even think I own a dress. I just always wore slacks and nobody, but they could see the arm. And so that, and especially with kids, that's, I think the first group I ever talked to were senior citizens. Then it ended up, I talked to a lot of elementary classes. There used to be a class out here long ago called Becoming a Master Student. Maybe there still is, I don't know. John Wolf, Dr. Wolf was in charge of it. He would have me talk to his Becoming a Master Student class. The elementary classes, I think there must have been a chapter in their health books or something on disabilities. So I knew several of the teachers. The thing that really opened my eyes one day, I went into this class and I knew this had happened. There was a little boy in there that had got his arms both taken off in a farm equipment accident. But he did everything with his feet. I mean, it was just mind-boggling to me. I mean, I know what I do with just one, but he was doing everything with his feet. Then I started talking to drunk drivers, and I'm trying to think. It's this when she called and asked, I said, "It's been so long since I've talked. I don't know. It's just." But anyway, I don't know if there was anything else exciting I was going to tell you. Oh, excuse me. My biggest thing with my whole situation, which you're not going to understand, but that's okay. I feel like my hand is right here and it's clenched. Now, at times it feels like somebody's stabbing me with a knife. I've had this for 54 years. I tried electrical acupuncture. I tried depressant medicine. They thought that would help. I underwent hypnosis, which that was really kind of cool. My mother was afraid of that. Because see, I don't have any memories of the night I was hit. Just I'm going on what people told me. But they said I was awake, but I don't remember any of it. But the pain, it's kind of now, I've got 2 medications I take about every 4 to 6 hours, kind of helps. But they don't, doctors, I've talked to a doctor in Alabama even. They don't know what to do for phantom pain. Now, and like I said, if I could feel, I can even like move the fingers, which is weird. I did what's called mirror therapy. I put this hand in a box, had a mirror, put this arm in, and if I'd move this hand, it felt like I was moving this hand. It was kind of cool at the time. But anyway, um, I quit doing that. I'm not one for exercise, believe me. I never have been. But it's just one of those. Now I have spasms in my leg. I can feel my toes. Of course, my toes feel like they're clear up here by my waist almost. But the phantom pain has been just one of those things that I've just learned to deal with. Like I said, they don't know. I've had so many different doctors try different things and whatever. And it's just, that's kind of, I think that's all I got to say. I mean, I could probably, like I said, I could probably go, oh, my car, I gotta tell you about my car, because my car is different than other people's. Because I have my left leg, we'd always move the accelerator over in the cars I had. And then I had to have power steering, and I had to have, and of course, this was long ago, the dimmer switch up so I could do it with my hand. I had a Maverick, I think it was, a green Maverick. They duct taped, they took the dimmer switch from the floor, put it up on the something and duct taped it. But anyway, but now I have an accelerator on the right or the left, and then I have this bar thing that goes across. Like if my daughter wants to drive my car, we can take this lock off and she can drive the car with her right foot and whatever. But other than that, there's, like I said, there's been very few things that I've tried or wanted to do. Running the bookstore was, books have always been a passion of mine. So at that time, we were a completely different bookstore than what it is now. We had children's books, we had all the textbooks, we had all the supplies that were needed, we had everything. And like I said, I've heard that it's completely different now. But anyway, okay, I'll shut up. Any questions? I guess I should say. Nobody else is asking questions, but if you want questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Good job.
Thank you.
Didn't take the,
Did we clap for you?
what?
I said, did we clap for her?
Oh, well, we better clap for Elizabeth. Well, I want to thank everybody for attending, especially our presenters. Michelle wanted to thank you guys for coming and taking your day out of being able to do school and get ready to move. Oh, okay. Well, I want to take a nap too, so we'll finish this soon. Just wanted to thank again everybody for attending. As you heard from the different people, we're all different. We might have a disability, but if you give us a chance, we might be your best friend. Or, you can help be a voice for us. We're not on Engage. We're not officially a club yet, the Abilities Club. I did start a Linktree thing that has a sign-in sheet for anybody that is interested in the club. Michelle also has the email. I'm guessing some of you, her students, have seen. If you're interested, you can sign in on that too. But again, I want to thank everybody for attending. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. I do have business cards over here. I'll have the Linktree. Maura's information on the benefit is over there, just to give you some ways to connect with us. Anybody have any questions or want to say anything or? Well, one last thing. I don't know if does anybody have a Jeep that is out here? Okay, well, over COVID, there is a lady from Canada. Her coworker was having a bad day. And the friend got to her car, wrote a little note, was looking around her car to see if she had some ribbon or something to tie a string to tie the note to her vehicle. She saw a rubber ducky. And so she's like, oh, yeah, perfect. So she put the duck on her door knob of her Jeep and put the little note under it saying, you've been ducked. Well, as we are 2 years, 3 years out of COVID, the ducking has become a Jeep thing. They both had Jeeps. So if you go around campus or around town, you might see Jeeps that have little ducks in their window. Well, it's because a person will go by and see a Jeep and say, "You've been ducked." And it gets a smile on your face. You'll never know what people are going through. So what I did is I have 100 ducks that I haven't tagged yet. So I thought, hey, why don't I put a smile on all your faces? So as you guys walk out of here, if you want to pick up a duck off the table, you can keep it. You can give it to your brother, sister, family, or best thing you could do, if you're in town getting something to eat, give it to someone. Say hi. How are you doing today? You never know what someone's going through or what you can do to change that person by a duck. So when you leave here, you might see a Jeep. Put it on a Jeep. They'll understand. But if you put it on a stranger's, give it to a stranger, say hi. Or if you're at the store tonight or next week, every day, say hi to people. Smile. You never know what a person is going through in that day or time. But again, I want to thank everybody, and any questions or anything, you feel free to stop by the table here and ask, or just file through and pick up a duck or scan the QR codes. Okay, they're different things.
Just because that looks like that mascot thing.
Oh, hey, he does.
You held it up, I thought, how'd she ever find something like that?
It does look like Wright States, Lakes, Laker, the Laker guy. Yeah, he's supposed to get a name sometime. Oh, oh, sweet. But so if you feel free to stop by, and if there's a faculty member that wants one, the duck or the dragon, feel free to stop by and get it from me. Thank you.